Audio Jungle.
Dạ vâng, và tiếp theo chương trình, ban tổ chức xin trân trọng giới thiệu hai diễn giả sẽ đồng hành cùng với anh chị trong webinar ngày hôm nay. Đầu tiên xin được giới thiệu anh Farhan, hiện là Senior Solution Engineer tại hãng phần mềm Chaos. Đồng hành cùng chương trình hôm nay là anh Huỳnh Anh Duy, hiện là M&A Resale Manager tại VietCAD. Và trước khi bắt đầu về phần trình bày, vì anh Farhan sẽ trình bày bằng tiếng Anh, nên ban tổ chức xin hướng dẫn các quý anh chị cách bật phụ đề tiếng Việt trên Microsoft Teams để thuận tiện hơn đến anh chị. Quý anh chị vui lòng thao tác các bước hiển thị trên màn hình. Đầu tiên mình sẽ chọn dấu ba chấm, sau đó chọn Language and Bits và chọn Show Live Caption. Sau đó anh chị sẽ chọn Caption Setting và chọn Language Setting. Sau đó anh chị sẽ chọn Translate và mình sẽ chọn Việt Nam Mi anh chị ha. Thì sau đó mình sẽ có là cái thông tin về dịch tiếng Việt đến trong cái phần trình bày của anh Farhan. Và nếu anh chị cần hỗ trợ thì anh chị hãy vui lòng nhắn tin vào khung chatbox, ban tổ chức cũng sẽ hỗ trợ ngay cho các anh chị ạ. Dạ vâng, và bây giờ xin mời các anh chị sẽ đến với phần đầu tiên là ứng dụng Veras AI và render trong thiết kế. So and now I would like hand to session over to Mr. Farhan for the today first session presentation. Please, Farhan, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll go ahead and share my screen and we can start with Veras and Enscape. Let me just go ahead. I think you might have to give me the rights to share the screen. I'm not able to do it at the moment.
So let's wait a moment as we will share for presentation for you.
Yes, thank you. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and are you able to see my screen?
Yeah, I can see now.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, hi everybody, I'm Farhan. As you've already introduced, I'm a senior solutions engineer. I'm also an architect and I'm with Chaos since the past 5 years almost. I work with architects and designers to help them better use our products. And today we're going to look at Veras and Enscape. And just before I start, I just wanted to go a little bit into what are the modern architects' challenges today. When you start a project, you have to start with ideation. You have the friction of starting. You have to translate hand sketches to 3D, contextual gathering. Then you go in other stages where you have to iterate your project. There is a cycle of revisions and you have to keep on going back and forth. And then, of course, you have the final visualization where you have to add all kinds of different details to make the render as beautiful or realistic as possible. Now, in the past, this was pretty different, but in the modern workflow, you typically have a sketch or an image that you use as your base, and then you prompt everything else with that image. Now, there are two challenges in the modern architectural realm. And the first one is to have a connected workflow. And this is where, you have your design track. And then with Enscape, it's now within your design where you could immediately create stuff, its renders and everything. But the AI track was outside of that workflow. And so with Veras, we try to bring it directly inside of Enscape. So you're able to have a connected workflow. And then the second part was, just to give you an overview that really different from the traditional workflow or the modern workflow where you're using a sketch or an image, we try to use your actual CAD model as the base. So you are able to, directly pick up stuff from your model instead of using a 2D flat image. And this is how Veras is working, that directly inside of the Enscape viewport, you are now able to pick up all these individual elements, objects, material surfaces, and you are able to prompt directly on them. And that's how we are going to look at today's session and explore how you can actually use that inside of your 3D environment. So let's start. So we already know what Enscape is. It's your real-time design companion. It works with all the popular CAD tools. It's easy to use. It's a plugin. It has real-time speed. And this is how a real-time workflow looks like, where you have your CAD environment, whoever's working on it, they could immediately see that visualization in Enscape. With the Enscape collection, we bring in the Enscape dashboard, all of these tools, especially Veras that we're going to talk about, as well as Envision. Now, Veras is an AI-powered visualization tool that helps you to quickly have a rapid, exploration of your design ideas. Once you go inside of Enscape and you click on the Veras tab, this is what you see. You have the option to, move around in Enscape, and what is your actual view at that very moment? That is the base image that Veras is going to use to, prompt on, and then you can keep on iterating on it. Now you have different source image options. By default, you're using the Enscape view, but you could also use, the rendered images that you already created with Veras, like go forward with further editing them. Or you could also do like a manual upload, which could be an image outside of your CAD, maybe a render you saved before and you want to work on it. You could directly bring it inside of Veras in Enscape as a manual upload and keep working on it. And you also have the option of none, which basically means you are doing text to image if you have to, do a special workflow where you need to generate something completely new. We'll start with the manual upload. This is similar to how the web version works, where you just upload an image and then you start working on it. But now you could do it directly inside of Enscape. You click on the Veras button, you choose the source as manual upload, and then you just drag or drop an image directly here, as you see, and then it's going to show that base image, and then you could directly start prompting on it. Now, there are different ways to use it. Whenever you start an architectural project, you might, of course, want to start with a sketch with your initial ideas. And that's what you could do here. You bring in a sketch to Veras, and then you ask it to show how that idea could look like as a build structure. So you could give in the prompt your ideas of the materials, the surroundings, the atmosphere, and all kinds of details that you have for that specific design vision. And then Veras will show that image to you, how it could actually look like. It doesn't really limit you in terms of, if it's only a build structure or an interior. It could be any design idea. It could be about form. It could be about geometry. It could be just about materials. You can test anything using Veras. Another workflow might be that you are, on a site and you take actual pictures of your project. This could be a renovation project. For example, in this case, we see a kitchen and I want to, renovate it. But before I go into 3D, I could just take these pictures, upload to Veras, and then ideate on it and see how different options could look like before I actually start making a 3D model for it. Now, Veras comes with a number of presets. These are templates that you could use immediately to quickly create something or generate something and have a quick idea of how this could look. This could be an illustrative look. This could be something like a physical model, or it could be something very, very real where you see the realistic aspect of a built structure. But what's important here is to understand that when you compose or generate an image, whatever prompt you give, if you like the result, you could save it as a preset and then use it for other projects as well, or even the same one. So if you see here, I have some Veras presets that come with it, but then I also have my presets where everything I create as my own preset, it's going to be saved here, and I could always come back to it. So once I drop an image in the manual upload, I can select an area for the sketch and then write a prompt that, I want to see this, these are the materials, that's the object. And in a matter of seconds, Veras is going to generate like at least 4 simultaneous options, and you could see different results and sort of better understand how your design could look like. Veras now comes with Nano Banana Pro, Nano Banana 2. Previously, we had Stable Diffusion. So everything under version 6 is Stable Diffusion. And from 7 onwards, it's Nano Banana Pro and Nano Banana 2. Now, this is really, really different if I compare it to Stable Diffusion in the sense that it understands simple human language. So if I'm ideating and I'm, doing different smaller tasks, I could just have a simple single line as well, where I just say something like, change the chair or change this texture, move something in the plan or the image. I could do everything like that. But if you are working in a bit more detail, where you already know what kind of output you're going to need, you can also have a very comprehensive prompt and separate that into different tasks. And that's what I did here. I had this floor plan and I wanted to go directly to a visualized view. And so what I did was I separated different tasks in a single prompt. I mentioned I want to generate a board to see all the areas as a final visual. The layout, the style, the details, the quality. And I think what was really important for me was to provide the constraints that I don't want Veras to change the design. The windows should be where they are. The walls should be where they are. Only the visual aspect should be visible. And so I went from this floor plan to this in just one prompt. And I'm able to immediately see how the space could look or feel like and have a better understanding of how or where the design is heading. Veras also has the option to segment a 2D image. That means you could segment it by different categories, different objects, and then select those different parts and prompt directly on them. You could also remove background. You can rotate a 2D image and see a different angle of it without having to go into 3D. And then we have the other source, which is directly the Enscape model. Now, this is really powerful in the sense that when you typically use AI, you have a flat image that you start with. Of course, you have the options to segment it through AI, but it's not in your 3D environment, right? But with the Enscape model, it's different. It understands the object ID, the material ID, all these depth channels. So it's really understanding the 3D organization, depending on how you separated it in your CAD program, Revit, SketchUp, Rhino, whatever you're using. And you could pick those objects or material surfaces individually and prompt directly on them. So here's a first example where I changed the source to Enscape. And let's say I'm really in the early conceptual stages and I just have a volumetric. Much before I go into 3D detailing, I could ask Veras to show me how this design would look like. And in the prompt, I could give, for example, I want to see a university campus, this and this in the surrounding. These are the materials. And it will immediately show me how my idea could look like. And so if there are some smaller or bigger decisions that I need to consider now before I spend so much time into detailing that model, then I'm able to, make those decisions now. So it really saves me a lot of time. And I could, understand the design direction much, much better in the conceptual phase. Veras also has the option to draw shapes. That means you could just manually draw a shape. For example, here I'm drawing a shape over this door, and I could say, change something about this door, either modify it or completely replace it. I could do that as well. But when I say it understands 3D arrangement, what I mean to say is that you could select by material. So these are the material surfaces inside of your CAD, but Veras can pick them up directly and I can say, hey, change or replace this material with black ceramic tiles, for example. And it's going to change that for me. And once I click render here, you'll see that it immediately creates a black ceramic tile texture. Now, generally, this is exactly what I asked for, and I like the results, but there could be a scenario that even though you like the results, you maybe had something else in mind. So what you could do in that scenario is you could use the reference image option, where you provide a reference texture or material that you actually wanted to use, and it's going to replace that surface with that specific material. The same applies with select by object. So depending on how you separated your objects in your CAD, groups, components, elements, whatever you have, you could pick up all these individual elements from your Enscape view And for example, here I pick this kitchen island and I say I want to remove this island and replace it with a dining table for 6 people, for example. And it's going to do that for me. And what's really nice about this combination is that it's context aware. So if there are any shadows or reflections spread because of that specific object, they are also going to be updated accordingly for that specific view. And once again, there could be a scenario where you say, I like the results, but I wanted a specific object or model that I don't have a 3D asset for in my CAD software or the Enscape asset library. I could just provide an image from a manufacturer for that object, and Veras place that object directly in the generated image. So referencing with AI, just like we saw that, here's your Enscape view, you provide a material reference, you choose the material surface, and it applies it for you. Same with the objects, this is my Enscape view, you provide the image of the object, and you define the area you want to place it, and it places it for you. But we also have other options. We have the style reference, we have the color reference, we have the design lock, and we also have a custom reference. Now, the style reference is pretty simple, straightforward. This is my Enscape view. I provide a style image that, I want half the render to be wireframe, half to be visualized. It uses that style and applies it to your own Enscape model. Or if I have a color reference, which basically refers to lighting or the atmosphere. So I use this Enscape view and I provided this color reference and it applied it to my image. And if you see how accurate it is, even the light from the blinds, how it's coming here, and the overall mood, it really, brought it to exactly the type of atmosphere I wanted in the reference image. Custom reference could be basically if you're not able to find anything in a specific category that is already defined, you can choose a custom reference where you can design your own referencing style, basically. So I have 2 examples for that. The first one is where I had my Enscape model and I said, okay, I have a picture from my site and I asked Veras to place my model inside this empty lot, and it did that for me. Another custom reference could be mood boards. This is something I really like and I use a lot. This is where, for example, you're in a design phase where you already worked on the Enscape model, you have all the textures in it, but you are talking to your customer or the client and they say, okay, we want to finalize the textures. They're slightly different from what we have been seeing or discussing throughout the design. So you could, create these mood boards where you provide all the textures that you're going to actually use in the build project. And you could define in terms of the text written here that where this is going to be placed. So for the walls, ceilings, windows, floors, even the rugs or the window frames. And then the customer also asked me to have these objects in the final visuals because these are the objects they're going to actually use once they build the structure or the space. But for these, I don't have an Enscape model or a model in my CAD. So I pasted in all the images on another mood board. And then I went to Enscape and I changed the visual style to line drawing or sketch mode, where you don't see the textures, you just see the line. So I don't have to remove them, but I still have a base image where I have the space. And then I applied the custom reference where I provided the first mood board and I asked it to place the textures on this base image. And it immediately did that for me in, a single prompt. And then I provided the second mood board and I asked it to place all the objects and it did that for me. Now, this is really fast, really quick. You could immediately get there from even a hand sketch, for example. But I wanted to test it further. So I used the video feature in Veras to create sort of a quick video to see how this space would actually feel like. And I was a bit more curious and I was like, maybe if there's someone walking in the space or interacting with the elements, then maybe that would give me a better idea as well. And so I created those and then maybe this is a good point to talk about Veras video. Veras has a built-in feature where you could generate different length videos, 5 to almost 10-second videos based on your base image. And you could also provide a start and an ending frame. Now, here you have different models. We recently launched the Veo model as well, where you provide your reference image, which could be the rendered image as well. And then you define the quality, which could go up to 4K, and the duration. This could also go up to 8 seconds at the moment. In the future, this could be more. So as you see here, I could quickly generate a video, and it shows me the spatial experience of the actual space. Now, this could be you animating the objects in your CAD view or your Enscape view. This could be an empty frame when somebody just enters and interacts with the space. It could also be weather or season changes, movement of some sort, people just sitting and talking, or something very illustrative where the idea is not really the realistic aspect of it, but more the concept behind the design. We also have a combine feature directly inside Veras. That means you could create a number of videos and then combine them directly inside of Veras. Now, if you need some sort of continuity, you could, of course, always have the first video and then use the last frame for the first video as the first frame for the second video, and then keep on going forward like this to have a bunch of videos and then combine them directly inside Veras to have a longer video to showcase to your clients or customers. Veras also has a gallery. Anything you ever create with Veras is saved in your gallery. You could always come back to it. You could always push it back to your workspace as well. And you could share it with anyone who has a Veras account, and they will be able to see those images directly inside of their Veras account as well. Like I said, there's also a web version which uses a manual upload. Just like you manually upload in Enscape, you could just use the web version to upload that. And you have access to your gallery in all of these versions. There are 3 versions or platforms, the Enscape platform, the web version, and then you also have the CAD version, which is installed as a plugin directly inside your CAD. So it works for Revit, SketchUp, ArchiCAD, Rhino, Vectorworks, as well as Forma. And in this case, it uses your CAD view. As you see, this is the Revit viewport here. And then you could prompt directly on it and, create these beautiful visuals and ideate, iterate on it. Now, these are the key features of Veras. There are different workflows on how people use it, but just wanted to show how it is mapped throughout different design phases, for example. If you're using, just your initial idea, which is perhaps a whitewash model, you could start with that. And then you could ask Veras to use that Enscape whitewash model and, generate something to quickly ideate and see how it could look like. And then you could see different ideas. Maybe it's an elevated building, maybe it has 3 floors, or maybe you're working or testing ideas on the envelope of the building. You could immediately test it using Veras and see how it looks. You could also be in the iteration phase where you already have the design, but the customer or the client asks you to change something. For example, in this case, they asked me to change the roof, have some skylights, maybe increase the height, and then I have different options here on testing how the roof could be increased and how different ideas for that could look like. In terms of design development, if you are in a very detailed design phase and you want to quickly test something like materials on the facade, for example, and you have these different materials from the manufacturer in terms of having it discussed with your customer, you could test them using just those textures and applying them through Veras before you actually apply it to your 3D model. And then, of course, visualization itself, you do create everything with Enscape, but some of the aspects that you want to add quickly, maybe it's the background, maybe it's those people, or maybe it's just changing some kind of visual elements like light, you could quickly do that with Veras. And of course, in post-editing, if you've already done everything and you want to really just enhance your renders, you could do those with Veras as well. You could also change the quality from 2K to 4K, for example, When you were in the testing phase, you were using 2K quality, which you could choose inside of Veras. And then in the final ones, you could go to 4K and make it even higher in quality. So this is how it looks like. You can use it pretty much in every design phase. It depends on what your individual workflow is, but ideation, iteration, design development, visualization, presentation for videos and stuff, and then post editing as well. I also wanted to highlight a little bit the idea of prompting itself. This is a very much asked question, how to prompt or what is the proper way to prompt. But I think it really depends on what you're trying to achieve. I'll give you a few examples. So for example, this is my Enscape view, and I say, okay, change the material on the wooden facade to colored vertical strips. And then I give a line break because now I'm talking about something else, and I try to break everything that's a different task, even if it's within the single prompt. And in the second part, I say, okay, add some swings and other outdoor play objects and some kids playing in that green space. Now, I didn't specify which green space I'm talking about. It could be this, it could be that, but I mentioned it. And so based on the information I give, this is what it creates, right? I do get the vertical strips on the facade, different colored. I get a play area here, but it didn't add any play areas in the background because I didn't specify which area. But in the second image, you see it provided there as well. It understood that maybe it has to do both of these as well. And so in the third as well. Now, I really think of prompting as somebody who's working with you. So for example, if you're working in an office and you are working on a design, but you want to hand it over to a colleague to do something for you. So AI is for me that colleague, and they will do exactly based on what information you provide. So if I'm able to explain to my colleague that, this is what you have to do, that's how you should treat prompting, where you have to explain exactly what you want it to do. And based on that information, it's going to do that for you. Because I think most of the times we miss important key information within the prompt. And then we look at the results and we're like, hey, that's missing, or this should have been like this. That's always, or mostly, I would say, because of the information that you provide. Now here, what I did was that I chose the draw shape tool and I marked the area with that. And I specified that area already. And I say, just remove the bridge. And then I hit render and it removes that bridge for me. But this was very specific because I marked that area. Now with Nano Banana Pro, it's really simple. Sorry? I cannot understand what you said. Is that a question or?
Excuse me, form client somebody unmute. Sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you can go ahead, Farhan. Thank you.
Yeah. In the second part, what I wanted to do was I just wanted to show you that with Nano Banana Pro, it's really different. It understands simple human language, like I said. And what I wanted to do in this case was I didn't mark that area. I just wrote that remove the bridge between the left and the right wings of the building. And in this case, it's pretty clear what I mean. I don't have to mark any specific area. I just specify in the prompt that this is what I want to do. And because of the clarity in the prompt, it does the same for me without me having to mark an area or do something. So once again, I'm emphasizing that, it depends on what information you give and how clear it is. And then again, I wanted to sort of go a bit further and challenge myself to see how prompting is working. So I said, okay, remove the bridge between the left and the right wings of the building and add an open walkway bridge with side rails connecting the two wings. And as you see, it did that for me. Another example could be here. This is my base image. And I say, show the building in winter. Now, that's the only information I gave. Now, it really depends on how the AI interprets winter. And it's going to, based on that information, it generates this image here. this is how it interpreted winter, which is, fair enough. It has everything that could be, defined as winter. You have the snow, you have the trees with sort of a wintry look and everything. But in the next prompt, what I did was I said, okay, show the building during winter and snowfall as well. So I added snowfall as a new keyword. And then it added snowfall as well. And then I said, okay, show the building during winter, snowfall, and blizzard. And then in the next image, you see now it's a blizzard, heavy blizzard, snowfall. People are trying to save themselves from the heavy blizzard. And so that's what the image reflects. So just like I said, it really depends on what information you're giving, and that's how prompting works. This is more for, let's say, ideation, where you're still testing ideas. That's when I would go step by step, that I do one part of the task, and then I use that image, and then I do another part of the task, and then I keep on going forward. And in this case, I would probably use a lower resolution because I have not reached my final image or visual. But if I already know what I want to achieve, for example, in this case, I already knew that what kind of a visual I want to create. So instead of going step by step with smaller prompts, I designed a very detailed prompt where I added all kinds of details in terms of what the building looks like, what the materials are, what's the time of day, what's happening in the surroundings. And based on that, I just went from a single prompt to this. And then I would change a few words here and there to see different scenarios and understand how I could use that public square or how it looks in different weather. And inside of Veras, like I said before, we have these presets. And some of these presets are basically templates for you to use. And you might see this sort of a structure where you have a main task. You have the option to enter style and art direction, components of your design, where you talk about what the main subject should be, what the setting should be, what kind of details should be there, lighting, color, and then constraints, of course. I use it a lot. And in terms of constraints, as I mentioned before, this is a perfect example where I say just maintain the original design and it maintains it for me. So this is how it's working, and Veras is working with every language. So if you're using it in your own language, it's going to give you the same results as it might give you in English or in French or any other language that you would want to use. Before I, come towards the end of the Veras part, I just wanted to talk a bit about what are the common pitfalls or how to avoid them. First, as we saw already, are having vague prompts. So the more specific you are in your prompt, the better results you get. Then you also need to sort of, differentiate between the ideation and iteration. Are you ideating? Are you testing ideas? Or are you iterating? You already chose an idea and you're working towards the final image. And that also defines how you treat the prompt and how you reach towards a final sort of an image. Consistency, you could lose them. So if you have worked with different AI platforms before, you might notice that if I create or generate an image for a space from one view, and then I create another one from a different view, the results are really, really different. And it looks like different projects. And this is what the design lock feature does in Veras, that once you generate an image and you like the results, you could lock the design, and then you could use that locked design and apply the same settings to a different view for the same space, and you get similar results. So you have consistency in your generated images. Presets, like I said, whenever you create something you like, immediately save it as a preset, so you could always come back to it. And when you generate something with Veras, try not to delete it from your actual viewport. Because if you delete it from there, it also gets deleted from the gallery. What you could do is that you could keep everything and have it in the gallery. And then later, when you think you don't need something, I would suggest you delete it directly from the gallery afterwards. But once you generate something, don't delete it from the viewport. keep it for a while, hang on to it, and see if you need it or not later in your process. Also, I'm also asked a lot of times that, sometimes we don't get the results we are needing, or, the design is being affected by AI images. People in my company are, not thinking enough. They're using AI more. How to go on with that kind of thing? I think what happens is that when you try to generate results with AI, sometimes it gives you results that are not related to the project, but you still like the visual. And then you treat your concept images as final renders, which, I think as a designer, as an architect, you're supposed to just have more understanding of the context or how things could look like, rather than using them as final renders. So it's more like a design companion rather than, a design tool itself. And secondly, when you let the tool lead the design, of course, things change. So you should really know how to responsibly use it and, use it in a way that it helps you achieve different tasks and not really lead the design itself. Yeah, so I guess that's pretty much it for Veras. I'll hand over back to you, Fong, and then you can go forward with the rest of the session.
Yes, thank you, Farhan. Yeah, now I leave to the team from VietCAD. She will have the conduct for our webinar. Okay, thank you, Dung. You can go ahead, Dung.
Dạ, em cảm ơn anh Phong ạ. So thank you Farhan for your presentation and the value insight. So thank again for joining today. So, dạ anh chị thân mến, để tiếp nối chương trình ngày hôm nay thì xin mời quý anh chị đến với nội dung thứ hai là cập nhật các tính năng mới của Chaos Vantage qua phần chia sẻ của anh Huỳnh Anh Duy, M&A Research Manager tại VietCAD ạ. Xin mời anh Duy.
Xin chào các anh chị, mình là Duy, là kỹ thuật về mảng truyền thông và quản lý công ty VietCAD. Thì hôm nay mình sẽ cùng với các anh chị tìm hiểu về những cái tính năng mới trong cái phần mềm Chaos Vantage phiên bản 3.0 trở đi nha. Thì ở cái phiên bản 3.0 trở đi này, Chaos Vantage nó sẽ tập trung vào những cái tính năng giúp cho các anh chị có thể mà tạo ra được những cái môi trường chân thật nhất. Thì để đi vào tính năng đầu tiên thì mình sẽ nói về cái tính năng mà nó cho phép chúng ta là nhập vào cái file gọi là 3D Gaussian Blasting. Thì nếu mà các anh chị nào chưa có tìm hiểu về cái định dạng này á, thì nó là một cái định dạng mà được thể hiện bằng point cloud, là các anh chị có thể dùng những cái thiết bị mà quét bằng những cái công cụ đặc biệt, hoặc là có những cái công nghệ mới có thể chúng ta có dùng điện thoại để chúng ta quét một cái vật thể 3D nào đó bằng ở ngoài, sau đó chúng ta sẽ đưa lên những cái ứng dụng mà nó có thể chuyển đổi cái dữ liệu quét của chúng ta thành những cái point cloud, và khi chuyển đổi được thành cái point cloud rồi chúng ta có thể đem vào những cái mô hình 3D để chúng ta có thể sử dụng ha. Thì được một ưu điểm của nó là nó có thể giúp cho chúng ta được là những cái mô hình 3D rất là chân thật, và chúng ta sẽ không có tốn thời gian để chúng ta làm lại cái mô hình 3D đó ha. Bây giờ mình sẽ cho các anh chị xem. Thì ví dụ là mình có một cái mô hình 3D được quét như thế này, là một cái giống như một cái nhà thờ ha. Và khi mà được quét 3D rồi, các anh chị thấy là nó bao gồm ánh sáng, vật liệu rất là chi tiết như thế này. Thì hiện tại là Chaos Vantage á, nó sẽ cho chúng ta phép chúng ta là tạo một cái vật thể, và cái vật thể này là nó sẽ có thể lấy được dữ liệu đây, Gaussian Blast, và nó có thể lấy được cái dữ liệu mà cái file online mà chúng ta download về. Ví dụ như cái nhà thờ hồi nãy là mình download về xong rồi nó cho một cái file, thì bây giờ chúng ta sẽ mở cái file đó lên và để vào Chaos Vantage. Và khi mà để vào thì chúng ta có thể điều chỉnh kích thước cũng như là cái vị trí của nó cho phù hợp với cái đồ án của chúng ta ha. Đây, ví dụ mình đặt nó ở cái vị trí này, là cái vị trí background thôi, và mình render thử cho anh chị xem, thì chúng ta có thể thấy được là tuy nó là cái mô hình mà được quét bằng những cái công nghệ, nhưng mà khi mà được vào 3D á, thì nó thể hiện rất là chính xác cùng với độ sáng, vật liệu cũng như là kết cấu của công trình ha. Thì đây là một cái phương án mà giúp cho chúng ta có thể là đưa những cái vật thể trong môi trường thực tế vào mô hình 3D của chúng ta, mà chúng ta không cần phải tốn thời gian để chúng ta mô hình nó lại. Một cái chức năng tiếp theo nữa là chúng ta có thể là làm cho nó là cái môi trường bầu trời đêm. Thì ở những cái phiên bản trước á, thì nó sẽ trong có chức năng này, nhưng mà ở cái phiên bản hiện tại á, thì nó cho phép chúng ta tạo ra được những cái khung cảnh bầu trời đêm mà có mặt trăng luôn, thì nó làm cho cái dự án của chúng ta nó thêm phần nghệ thuật một tí ha. Và có những cái cảnh mà chúng ta cần chỉ trình diễn đêm khách hàng coi á, thì chúng ta có thể sử dụng cái chức năng này. Thì đây, ví dụ như là bình thường là chúng ta sẽ render là cái cảnh ban ngày như thế này, có mặt trời ha. Thì để mà sử dụng được cái cảnh đêm đó, thì chúng ta phải sử dụng cái bầu trời, mô hình bầu trời của chúng ta là cái clear sky mới nha các anh chị, đừng có sử dụng cái cũ, tại vì cái cũ nó sẽ không có chức năng là bầu trời đêm ha. Thì để mà có mặt trăng thì chúng ta phải hạ cái độ cao của mặt trời xuống để chuyển thành ban đêm. Và sau đó chúng ta sẽ sử dụng cái chức năng là moon, mặt trăng. Chúng ta bật cái mặt trăng lên ha. Chúng ta có thể tùy chỉnh cái thông số, ví dụ như là độ lớn của mặt trăng, độ sáng cũng như là vị trí của mặt trăng ha. Thì ở đây ví dụ mình chỉnh cái vị trí của mặt trăng theo cái kinh độ và vĩ độ, thì mình có thể là tùy chỉnh cái vị trí này để cho cái mặt trăng nó cái vị trí phù hợp ha. Và cái mặt trăng này đó, thì các anh chị có thể là tùy chọn để cho nó có những cái hình dạng khác nhau, ví dụ như là trăng tròn, trăng khuyết, là chúng ta có thể xoay cái vị trí của mặt trăng này cho chúng ta thấy nó phù hợp nhất ha. Đây, ví dụ chúng ta kéo cái thành phay này, chúng ta sẽ có được cái là trăng tròn hay trăng khuyết, rồi chúng ta có thể hoàn toàn chúng ta có thể có được cái kết quả như chúng ta mong muốn. Ngoài ra thì ở cái cảnh đêm này chúng ta có thể bật cái là Enable Scattering Force lên để chúng ta có tạo một cái hiệu ứng cho nó giống cinematic một tí. Và để mà render ra thì chúng ta sẽ có kết quả như thế này ha. Đây. Thì đây là một trong những cái chức năng mà giúp cho các anh chị mà có thể mà diễn họa được cái cảnh mà buổi tối của những cái công trình cho khách hàng xem ha. Một chức năng hay tiếp theo nữa là nó cho phép chúng ta tạo ra được một cái tấm plan, và cái tấm plan này nó có thể hiện được chất liệu giống như là nước. Thì trước giờ khi mà chúng ta muốn làm được những cái cảnh mà giống như cái hồ bơi mà có nước chuyển động á, thì chúng ta phải làm thủ công, rồi chúng ta tạo một cái tấm plan, xong rồi chúng ta phải làm những cái bơm mát để cho nó có một cái độ gợn sóng giống như cái hồ bơi. Thì chúng ta phải làm nó hơi bị cực. Thì ở cái phiên bản mới nhất này, rồi ở cái Chaos Vantage nó cung cấp cho chúng ta một cái tấm plan, và cái tấm plan này nó có cái độ chuyển động của giống hệt nước luôn. Bây giờ mình sẽ show cho anh chị xem. Thì đây là cái phương án cũ của mình, làm giống như mình để một cái tấm len xong rồi nó chỉ đứng yên như thế này thôi, nó chỉ những cái gợn sóng như thế này và nó không có thể chuyển động được. Thì chúng ta có thể bỏ nó và chúng ta để vào cái tính năng là water fade. Thì như các chị thấy là nó một cái tấm len, nhưng mà nó có thể chuyển động giống như nước được. Đây thì rất là nhanh chóng và chúng ta có thể tạo ra được một cái mặt nước của cái hồ bơi ha. Có nước chuyển động như thế này, có những cái gợn sóng. Và cái tấm plan này chúng ta có thể tùy chọn những cái thông số, ví dụ như là mức độ sóng thì chúng ta có thể chọn được mức độ sóng của hồ bơi, của hồ ngoài tự nhiên hoặc là biển. Chúng ta có thể tinh chỉnh được những cái giá trị đó. Ngoài ra chúng ta có thể chọn được cái màu của nước luôn. Ví dụ chúng ta muốn màu đục hay màu trong này nọ rồi chúng ta có thể tùy chọn ở đây. Và trong một thời gian rất là ngắn là chúng ta có thể có được một kết quả để diễn họa cái cảnh hồ bơi rất là ok ha. Đây mình render cái xem thì nó sẽ kết quả như thế này ha. Chức năng kế tiếp là chúng ta có thể tạo được những cái hiệu ứng là khói lửa hoặc là sương mù. Thì trước đây nếu mà chúng ta sử dụng để làm những cái kỹ xảo như vậy, chúng ta sẽ thường dùng cái chức năng, cái phần plugin là Chaos Vantage, và chúng ta làm những cái hiệu ứng đó trong chuyên hoặc là Maya. Thì hiện tại thì Chaos Vantage nó cho chúng ta một cái chức năng là chúng ta có thể tạo được những cái hiệu ứng đó trong Chaos Vantage luôn. Và ngoài ra thì nó có thể đọc được những cái file mà chúng ta đã tạo từ Chaos Vantage trong 3ds Max. Chúng ta tạo xong chúng ta có thể để vào đây và nó đọc và nó có thể hiểu được ha. Ví dụ đây là mình có một cái nơi mà chúng ta có thể đốt lửa trại ở đây, ví dụ